Hey everybody, this is Jeremy. Uh, Welcome to another Sunday live stream. Hopefully this is going to work out for us. I'm using the A10 Mini Pro. I think this is the first real live stream I've used it for. And I've got the camera set up a little bit different angle than what I've been doing lately. So hopefully that will work out as well and maybe make things a little more interesting for everybody. I hope I've got some interesting topics to talk about today. We're going to go through some news real quick. Silence my cell phone. Sorry about that. We're going to go through some news this morning. We will talk about a file sharing product alternative to Google Docs called LinShare. And then we will talk about a couple of other products that one of which was brought to my attention that I didn't know about, called Action 1 RMM, and then talk about Zabbix. And we will go through the startup of a virtual machine with the Zabbix appliance directly from them. Basically pre-configured and installed and ready to go for testing purposes, which will give us a basis of something to work with and play with, and something for me to explore and cover for future videos. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to take a look at the comments and see who we've got here already. Welcome, Joseph. Let's see. Back already. Winter storm was a bust. Made it through just fine. But I need to monitor potential for another winter storm coming on Thursday. All right. Well, here's hoping that that one doesn't come through. May that one be a bust as well. All right. So let's go over here to my little document. And so the first news item that I wanted to bring up is that there is a flat pack. Again, this is going to be for Linux, a flat pack available of OBS Studio version 27.2. And so this is going to have some bug fixes and some enhanced features that are more Linux specific. Namely, they've got some additional work done on Pipewire integration, which is the underlying sound system, the newer sound system for Linux, that will be becoming more common as we go forward. So that was an interesting development this week. There was also, I found this on a website, but I'm going to paste into chat the YouTube link directly. And this is an interview at the Australian Linux conference with Brian Kernighan, one of the original developers of Unix, who worked at Bell Labs for quite some time. The man is now 80 years old, so there probably won't be too many more interviews with him in the coming years, but this one I thought was kind of interesting. And you know, when you have an interview with one of these people that worked on the original Unix, you always leave, or I always feel like I leave with some little insight. And he brought up a book that was originally available back in the late 70s, and was republished in some form in the late 90s, that actually had the Unix source code, the early Unix source code, on one page, and then the opposite page would be a detailed description of what that code actually did. And the story that Brian told in this video talked about how this book would be passed along, originally used for computer science lectures, but then, when the licensing changed for Unix, this book would be passed around and photocopied and, pretty widely circulated among computer science students, even when the published version was not readily available. So, kind of an interesting insight on something that was around during the early years of Unix, within the first 10 or so years of Unix being available. So that video has been pasted in chat, and hopefully that will be of interest to some of you. It's not a long video, but one worth watching nonetheless. All right, let's see what we've got in chat so far. I'm looking for a distro based on Debian 11 with Linux 5.15 and Plasma 5.20. Is it a good idea to install KDE Plasma on Deepin OS 20.4? That's a good question. I have not attempted that. I'm not deeply familiar with pun not entirely intended. I'm not directly familiar with Deepin 20.4, so I'm not sure I'm in a position to make a good recommendation on that. However, I will say that it's worth a try. If Deepin is a version of Linux that you're familiar with, then go for it. It shouldn't be that difficult to get a KDE Plasma desktop installed on it. Okay, let's see. Like the new camera angle, watching in the studio while I print a 3D stand for the ATEM Extreme. Third attempt, first two failed miserably. Well, I was actually looking at the, let me back up. Welcome, Tony. I should say that first. I was actually looking at the, there is a stand available. I think it's around $80 for the ATEM Mini and Mini Pro. I was looking at that. I don't have access to a 3D printer, so I'm thinking options down the road a little ways, because my desk is starting to get cluttered with devices and cables and things, and anything I can do to clean that up a bit is going to be a welcome solution. So let's see. Perhaps I'll wait for Mint 21 and install Plasma 5.24 onto that this summer. That's not a bad option. Let's see. I just read an article or watched a video. I think it was a video, an older video, maybe a year or so old. I'm not sure if the creator was Joe Collins. It seems right, but don't quote me on it. He actually went over the buildup of a desktop Linux system by installing Ubuntu server first, and then using TaskCell to select whichever desktop you wanted, and it just gives you some additional customizability. It's one of those projects. I have done that before. It's a fun learning project. It's not as intense as something like Linux from scratch, but it's a little more in depth than, just doing a standard install. So that might be an option as well. Welcome, Catherine. It's been a while. Glad to see you back. Or just install Ubuntu 2204. Yes, that would be a good option as well. Okay, so let me jump back to my notes. Next item that I thought was interesting, there was a new release of Darktable, which contains a few new features and bug fixes. For those not familiar, Darktable is an alternative to something like Adobe Lightroom, if you couldn't figure it out by the name. It's open source. It does a lot of the same things that Lightroom does, and this is just the latest version of it. So, and then the other notable piece this week is Slackware 15 came out, and as some of you may be aware, Slackware is the oldest continuously updated Linux distribution that is still available. So I have run Slackware in the past. At the time that I ran it, which has been probably 10 years or more ago, it was by far one of the fastest Linux distributions on that particular hardware that I had ever run. Now, hardware has got a lot faster in 10 years. So whether or not you'll see the same type of speed on this current version, I can't say. I have not installed it yet, but that might be something I'll take a look at in another week or so. Okay, so getting on to one of our first segments, I want to come over here and share my screen. Let's do it that way. Okay, so the first item that I wanted to bring up, and this is something that I just came across this week. I don't believe I'd ever heard of it before. This is called LinShare. This has apparently been around, as they say here on the top of their website, since 2009. It's currently in beta. Sometimes open source products come about slowly. There is a promo code to get 20% off on the paid plans. No, they are not a sponsor. There is also a self-hosted version that you can make available, get access to. So LinShare describes itself as an alternative to Google Drive, with some interesting twists. You've got your file sharing, your data control, security and encryption, but you've also got activity logs, which is something that Google is seemingly not a fan of making available. The one piece that they are missing at the moment is a desktop client. There are apps for iOS and Android, but not a desktop client. You would have to use a web browser for that. One of the features that I thought was interesting, and I'm going to, let me make this just a little bit bigger. Whoops, wrong screen. One of the pieces that I thought was interesting, and they've got a demo, so we'll just grab a demo user here, And we'll launch the demo. One of the things I found interesting about this is that you can do an upload request, which would send an invitation to somebody else to upload a document or file of some variety to LinShare. The interface is pretty clean. You have different options for your default homepage when you initially log into this. Something worth pointing out is this is all hosted, if you use the software as a service version, this is hosted in Europe. And they do have, let me see here. If you go to get the offer, they do have a free version, €0, which gives you 20 gigabytes of free storage. Now, some of the things that are coming soon may be deal breakers for you. Two-factor authentication and single sign-on are both listed as coming soon. In 2022, this is kind of a no-brainer that you would want these things. But, you know, the data is hosted in Europe, not subject to the Cloud Act or the Patriot Act. It is GDPR compliant. You've got chat support even on the free version. And you've got access via web and mobile with the desktop client coming soon. So I thought I would show this off. It is still currently showing that it's in beta, but you know they've got documentation out here for getting it installed if you're doing the self-hosted version on various versions of Debian or CentOS. And if it runs on Debian, you could run it on Ubuntu, generally speaking, or any other Debian derivative. And, you know, interesting project. I'm not sure I would necessarily want to use it for anything terribly sensitive at this point, especially when they're lacking the two-factor authentication. Which I have been making sure is installed on anything and everything that has that option available to me. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting option, and hopefully they'll get it out of beta at some point soon. Being around since 2009 and not being out of beta is kind of a long time. Okay. So yeah, they call it an open source alternative to Google Drive. Talks about some places that use it: European Parliament, Ministry of the Economy and Finance of France. So yeah, something to consider. It is 100% open source. The code is available on GitLab. So I thought this was interesting, and I thought it would be worth sharing. So that is our first topic of the day. So let's see what we've got in comments currently. Ubuntu 20.04 Focal Fossa is a no-go because the packages and drivers are too dated for my new laptop. Yeah. So you might, Joseph, you might want to just try out. There are beta versions of 22.04 out already, and you can try before you install. So you might just throw it on a thumb drive and load it up and see if it's going to have what you need for your new laptop. Maybe they want to stay in beta forever. It's possible. It's possible. I guess that's one way of managing people's expectations, is just perpetually stay in beta. My Intel Tiger Lake laptop hates Linux 5.10 and older. Yeah, I have no doubts of that. Hopefully they will backport some of the support for the newer generation Intel chips, because even though 2204 is coming out in April, there is going to be another few years of support for 20.04. Let's see. Yeah, 20.04 is not going to be end of life until April of 2030. So I'm pretty sure that once they have 22.04 out, they will allow the kernel from 22.04 to be supported in 20.04. So we'll see how that happens. Let's see. Another comment. It would be nice to stay on Endeavor OS forever, but it may not be as practical during today's tough times. Right. Yeah, things are a little volatile, shall we say, at the moment. All right, let's go on to the next product I wanted to talk about. And let's see, do I have the website for this up? There we go. Share my screen again. Okay, so the next product I wanted to talk about is called Action 1. This was brought to my attention. I received an email from Chris, one of our regular viewers and commenters in our Sunday chat. And I was frankly unfamiliar with this product. Action 1 is an RMM, or Remote Monitoring and Management Solution, which is useful if you're providing support as part of an organization, or if you do consulting and have to manage a number of machines, preferably remotely. And I have been familiar with other RMM solutions, but not this particular one. The thing that caught my eye here was the first 100 endpoints are free forever. And that is attractive to me for a number of reasons. So in my day job at the library, we only have about 20 or so machines in the building. and almost all of those are running Windows. So uh, this particular solution is going to be helpful for patch management, making sure updates are installed. It has remote desktop built in, um, all kinds of things. And of course, you get 100 endpoints for free. So that makes it very attractive right there. Now, as far as their core features, I'll make that a little bit larger. Patch management, software deployment, remote desktop, real-time visibility, unattended access, endpoint management, strong security, and a RESTful API. And as you can see, trusted by thousands of clients globally. And yeah, this is pretty slick. So, one of the caveats about this particular software is it is only supported currently on Windows, which again, for this particular solution for my day job is not an issue, because we are almost completely Windows there, with a few Linux things that I've brought in to do some monitoring, alerting, and different sort of behind the scenes things that are really only applicable to me, to being the IT guy. It uses an agent that you have to have installed on each machine. But there is also a demo version of this available, or you can schedule a personal demo. I just went ahead and got it installed at the library yesterday, and one of the reasons for doing so is that I had read an article recently, I think I talked about it a week or two ago, that for a Windows system, after you do Windows updates, that machine needs to stay online for 8 hours for things to actually be fully complete, which seems terribly excessive to me, but that came right from a product manager at Microsoft. So, yeah. So I stayed. Yesterday was one of my weird Saturdays that I actually had to work. So I stayed after for almost 2 hours and got this agent installed on a good number of our machines, so that I could just see how flexible it was. And I will be logging into that this afternoon and doing some cleanup before the work week starts tomorrow, and have those machines available for public use again. So on their roadmap, this is the interesting thing that I found. I'll make this larger again. They've got, the standard sort of Kanban or Kanban, however you want to pronounce it, board here. In progress items are kind of interesting. One of the things that they don't currently have that really would make it a wonderful product is file transfer and remote desktop. With the current software I'm using, which is Splashtop, for remote access to client computers, file transfer is very handy. So they're also going to add the option to uninstall updates and more security software vulnerability assessment, or CVE tracking. Now, on their future list, they've got an agent for macOS and an agent for Linux, being able to manage routers and printers and things. So this is a pretty interesting solution. Not maybe as full featured as some of the other more established options that are out there, such as Ninja RMM. However, when you can get 100 endpoints free, it's not a bad place to start. And especially if you work for a nonprofit where you have zero budget, this seems like a wonderful solution. Sure, it may not have all the bells and whistles yet, but there's always a workaround for those things, because let's face it, folks, there was a time when RMM solutions just did not exist, at least not in the form that they do today. So, excuse me. Worth checking out. Again, this is something that I may use for my side business, where I do consulting work and manage machines for other organizations as well. So, yeah, if you're in the MSP space and or doing freelance consulting, this may be something to look at, especially if you're just getting started. This is a zero cost solution, and once you get to that 100 endpoint level, the endpoints following that, starting at 101, are only $2 per endpoint per month. So, and then of course, if you're managing 500 or more, contact them for pricing. I don't believe as a single tech I am ever going to manage 500 endpoints by myself. However, I could see scaling to the point where I may be doing 200, 250, and it makes that advantageous to move on from there. Okay. Let's see. What do we have in chat? Take the screen off. And one day I'll have another camera so I can switch angles when I'm looking at my screen and not just staring at the camera. We'll get there. Let's see. I cannot keep updating my system every few days if there are going to be service interruptions as a result of storms and a weak power grid. Yep, I get it. That's definitely something to take into consideration. Third attempt failed too. I'll switch gears and attempt to install OpenSense in a VM. That's always fun. I've definitely done OpenSense in a VM before. I've done pfSense in a VM before. Interesting things. Baghira restarted my PC. I think that's one of your cats, isn't it? Alright. Let's see. My old desktop PC should not be running Arch anymore, but is the only distro it can handle well using a modern desktop environment. It may have to run MX Linux permanently. Yeah, MX is a good option. Linux Lite might be a good option as well. So something to think about there. Okay, well, let's move on to, let me go back to my notes. Let's see. Let's go on to my second segment on Linux. And we're going to talk about Zabbix. Zabbix is a monitoring solution. Let's see, add to stream. Just take me off and throw that up. Okay, so Zabbix is a free monitoring solution. They will, you can, as they say, monitor anything: networks, servers, cloud, applications, services. You can run it on premises or in the cloud. Enterprise ready. They hit all the keywords here. I see Raspberry Pi listed on things that you can integrate with. Get started in 10 minutes, absolutely free. And so one thing that they do make available is pre-built appliances. Let's see if we go to download. Okay, I've already downloaded the appliance. They are pushing right now. This is 6.0.0 release candidate 2. We're going to use the stable version, which came out, the 5.4.10 came out the end of January. And I've already downloaded the OVF. So we are going to jump over to VirtualBox. Let me minimize that. Jump into VirtualBox on Linux and import an appliance. And we'll go to downloads. And we want, let's see. Where did that download to? I know I downloaded it this morning, but there we go. Zabbix Appliance 5.4.10, and we are going to open that. We'll say next. And it's going to tell us that it's running on Red Hat or something like Red Hat, so likely CentOS. Giving it 4 CPU cores, 4 gigs of RAM, and setting network cards and whatnot here. So we're going to go ahead and import. This will take just a moment. Okay, let's take a look at the settings real quick. Go to System. They've turned off everything except the hard disk, which is great. Processor, 4 cores, which is fine. Don't need to worry about display since that is, it's a server version, and all we really need to worry about is getting the IP address when it boots up. We could even go ahead and disable audio. We're going to put it on a bridged network, and that should be it. And we'll go ahead and get this started. All right, so let's see. Yes, my black mini panther. I do love a black cat. No, that was directed at not me. Okay, so hope everybody's doing well today. I don't see Chris in the chat, so maybe he had something come up with his work, but we will continue on through this. Okay. And if I remember correctly, okay, so by default, the username for the appliance is root and the password is Zabbix. And then for the web front end, we have admin and Zabbix. And so this is going to be available on 74.102. And I'm going to jump back here. And make sure okay, I think we're just on 80 here. There we go. Admin Zabbix. All right. And so they already have everything set up on the Zabbix machine itself. And so you've got a lot of things that you can do with this. And it looks, you know, pretty intuitive at a first glance. You know, the host name, this is under latest data. So your trigger, so available memory, last value 2.8 gigabytes. And it gives you all kinds of interesting things about your machines. So once we've got that installed, and again, this is just a bare bones, I've not run any updates, I've not even changed the administrator password on this yet, but we could jump over here to, this is the Optiplex machine running Ubuntu that I'm connected to. Throw up, oh, NeoFetch isn't installed. So as you can see, this is running the 5.13 kernel, and it's running Ubuntu. So I've already installed the repositories needed to get access to the Zabbix agent. And again, having the Zabbix agent will allow us to connect this particular machine to the Zabbix VM so it can be monitored. So we're going to search and see what is in the apt repository for Zabbix. Zabbix agent specifically. So we've got Zabbix agent as a package we can install, and Zabbix agent 2. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to install the original Zabbix agent. And say -y so it doesn't prompt us to continue. And there's the password. Okay, now once we've got that part installed, let me take a look here. There is an article that talks about installing the Zabbix agent on Ubuntu specifically. I'll drop that in chat, and we'll open that up in another tab, because there's a little bit of configuration work that needs to be done. Alright, so we need to edit Etsy Zabbix zabbixagentd.conf. Copy that, and we'll come over here, and we've got a configuration file. So if we come down a little further, we should have a line for the server. Server is going to be 172.16.74 dot 102, and if we go back down through this file, okay, server active, .102, and the host name for this is going to be Optiplex 7040. I'll just go back down through the options, and we'll save that. And we want to take a look at our instructions. Server is the Zabbix server ID. Make that a little bit larger for everybody. And get rid of some of these ads. Server is the server IP address, and host name is I believe the name of the machine you're going to have monitored. Alright, so now we need to restart the Zabbix agent and enable the Zabbix agent so that it runs when the system reboots. So we will do this, and then we want to enable, and then let's check the status just to be sure. And it is loaded and active running. So if we come back to our Zabbix web interface, hopefully we will see this come through in fairly short order. Again, I have not set this up before, or if I have, it's been quite a long time. Let's see. So log into Zabbix server, click on configuration tab and host, create host, and oh, did I do that wrong? No, it should have been right. It should have been right. Let's see. The server is 102. That part I probably messed up on. This is Required for active checks and must match host name as configured on the server. Okay, so that part I need to take a look at. Okay, so we want to connect. And we can't do that. Okay. We will go back over here and okay, so that is 102, but we want to also find out this machine is 173. All right. So we will check one more time and see if 173 is showing up. It's not. So we'll go to hosts and we will say enabled, and let's apply that. And maybe I've screwed this up already. Well, let's see. Number of hosts, enabled, disabled. All right, so obviously I need to go back and read some documentation and try to learn about this a little bit more and get it configured. Probably inventory. But the interesting thing is, and I don't think Chris is here, but the interesting thing is this was something that Chris deployed, and he was able to remotely discover the issue at a remote location, which was causing one of their machines to reboot, and have all kinds of connectivity issues. And it turns out that they had a power sucking appliance on the same circuit, and every time this appliance was run, it would cause the machine to reboot. And so, yeah, it was something that worked very well for him. I'm wanting to kind of investigate this and experiment with it a little bit more and see what I can use this for. As I'm adding more and more devices on my home and lab networks, I think this would be a potentially good solution for what I'm doing. So hopefully, while not a full demo on all the capabilities here, hopefully this provides some insight on what you can do with this. There are reports that you can run on things here. And let's see, configuration. Let's see, create host. know if this gives us an option. I don't know, we'll call it a Linux server, even though it's a desktop. What do we got? 7.3. And connect to IP address. And we'll say Ubuntu desktop. And so we've got items, triggers, groups, discovery, status enabled, and let's see what we've got here. Dashboard. Let's refresh. It's still only showing one available host. This may take a little while to come through. It's not seeing the Zabbix agent. So likely I've got some sort of incompatibility or configuration error, more likely, going on here. But hey, this is how we learn, by doing things, and you know, it'll be interesting to see if this starts reporting, or if I need to do some additional work on the Ubuntu machine to make this work. But it seems like a solution that I could make use of. The price is right for sure. And you know, if I can get to a proficiency level with this, this is definitely something that could be added to a resume and useful for getting a job at some point in the future. So I guess at this point I'm curious to hear if anybody out there in the audience that's watching currently, have any of you used Zabbix or some similar network monitoring, network and host monitoring application? The earliest one that I was exposed to was OpenNMS, and that was that's a whole story. But anyways, let's update on chat and see where we're at with things. Let's see, conversation going on between some of the participants. But Zabbix is not for personal PCs, I assume. It is for admin and network bigger businesses. So it requires a server. So generally you're going to see that more used as in a bigger business. If you've only got a couple of PCs and they're all running Windows, then you know, even running that Action 1 solution might be useful to you, especially at the zero cost option. So you know, that might be something worth looking at there. Action 1 is in the cloud, but you have to register for an account, but it does not require a subscription where you're paying anything until you get past the initial 100 endpoints. So I'll bring this back up. First 100 endpoints are free forever. So if you're just doing support for family and friends, this is a perfect solution. If you're running a little small consulting gig on the side, this is a perfect solution. The organizations I'm dealing with currently are all like 20 PCs or fewer running Windows. So I could register, for instance, an account with my business email and set up sub-organizations for each of the client organizations that I deal with and keep their PCs separated. But yes, it is cloud-based. And that's something that everybody has to kind of grapple with, whether it's something they want to use. But yes, cloud-based, no subscription until you get past 100 endpoints. I'm going to test 22.04 Ubuntu development, build in VirtualBox. Be right back. Okay. LinShare I found interesting too. Great. I'm always happy to come across things that I have not been familiar with and spread the word a little bit. I realize that I'm kind of getting into a position where I'm sort of acting like a cheerleader for different products. Go team, rah rah rah. It's not really in my nature to be the cheerleader type, but if something seems interesting, it's worth spreading the word. And I'm a little more inclined to use things that are open source than things that are put out by money-sucking corporations that do nefarious things. I'm a cheapskate security purist who has been burned by both those factors. Yes. Yeah. So I guess I'll say I've been very lucky. I've not had any really bad experiences up to this point. Knock on wood. There's always a first time. But coming as a recommendation from Chris, and I've talked via email with Chris a few times on different things and tossed some ideas back and forth. And he's been doing IT longer than I have. So both he and David, I have to say I kind of look up to them, and Tony for that matter. I'll throw you in here as well. There are people that have more experience that in all honesty, I wish I would have had more of an IT mentor early on in my career. But I guess I'm making up for it now. I've got connections through the YouTube channel, and it's a great feeling to have those kinds of connections and be able to bounce ideas. And I don't necessarily want a solution handed to me, but if people can say, "Oh, I had experience X with product Y," I find great value in that information. So, you know, it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be, and I'm glad to have the connections that I've made through doing YouTube. So, um, so I guess at this point, we're an hour and six, almost 7 minutes now, 7 minutes in. Um, do we have any questions or comments from the audience? As I've said countless times before, I'm always interested in, additional products that I could potentially look at and evaluate. Um, I have. I'm gonna throw this out here again. I am going to, excuse me, throw the website up for Zero Tier again. Once again, I found myself in a position where I suggested Zero Tier as a solution for a person that wanted to remotely monitor a Raspberry Pi. I believe it's running Octoprint for a 3D printer, and has a camera, a Raspberry Pi camera attached to it. And Zero Tier has a client for Linux, Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS. It has the flexibility there to allow you to do secure connections between those types of devices. And this particular person, he's got an iPad Pro that he does a lot of his work on. He has an iPhone. I believe he's got a Windows PC or laptop that he uses for his live streaming. But I wanted a solution that would be secure and flexible enough for him to have control on it. He's not a huge IT guy, but he is no dummy either. So I suggested Zero Tier. It is 256-bit encrypted end to end. It's been called a VPN. It's been called an overlay network. It's been called SD-WAN. People call Zero Tier a lot of things when it's reported on or reviewed. I think famously pfSense and OpenSense refer to it and have it in their interface once you add the package as a VPN. So for all intents and purposes, I'm going to call it a VPN going forward. But you can have this installed on routers. You can have it installed on individual devices. And it just works, It's there's also an alternative, Tailscale. Tailscale is another similar product. Zero config VPN for building secure networks. I believe they also have a free version. One user, up to 20 devices. Can be used with SSO and MFA. So, there are other options available. Both companies do offer paid versions if you get above the free tier of devices or endpoints or what have you that you've added to your VPN network. So pricing on zero tier, they don't actually show it. They've got MSP pricing, they've got IoT pricing, multi-cloud pricing, what have you. Tailscale's a little more upfront about it. You know, both have been reviewed by people like Tom Lawrence from Lawrence Technology Services, I believe LTS, or Lawrence Systems. Shout out to Tom if you haven't watched his videos. Good information. And he works with Jay LaCroix to do the Home Lab podcast and video podcast thing every week. And that's pretty interesting and informative as well. So if you're not familiar with Tailscale or Zero Tier 1, take a look. Going back about 12 years or so, there was a product, and I don't know, it might still be available. Hold that thought. I apparently triggered Google in the background. I'll be right back. Hey Google, cancel music. Hey Google, cancel music. Okay, sorry about that. Google started playing in the background all of a sudden. Okay, we have somebody new in here. Digit Eagle. Let's see. Your thoughts on NDI-HX? Is there any pre-configured NAS that has got enough GPU power to use it as capture box? I'm afraid I'm not familiar with NDI-HX. I know what NDI is. I'm not sure about a NAS that would fit that solution, though. However, you know, you could build something on, as Catherine suggests, you might be better off building your own. Open Media Vault would work potentially. TrueNAS would work potentially. I would probably hold off if you're going to go TrueNAS. I'd probably hold off for TrueNAS Scale, which is their version built on Linux and not BSD. So those are a couple of options there. Tailscale is built on WireGuard. Do you know about Zero Tier? I just talked about Zero Tier. So I also like Nebula Mesh VPN solution. I've not played with Nebula Mesh at this point. The old product that this is similar to is Hamachi, which is available on VPN.net. create virtual private networks on demand. And this was something that was pushed. Shoot, I found out about this in like 2004. And this was pushed as something to allow, the PC gamers to, do LAN gaming easily from remote locations. So, there are a number of products out there in this space. So, let's see. My old boss at PricewaterhouseCoopers referred to me as the gauntlet when it came to buying a product or hiring a new consultant. Trust is high mountain to climb with me. Ask some of my children. Well, now, if I had contact information for your children, then that sounds like an excuse to invite them on the show. But I guess I'd have to pass that through you first, and maybe I wouldn't be able to climb the mountain and reach the level of trust to have them on. But let's see. Ask for my students. Okay. Lawrence is awesome. So his name is actually Tom. His last name is Lawrence. Tom Lawrence. Let's see. I meant, do you know if Zero Tier is also WireGuard, OpenVPN, or different? Oh, Zero Tier is their own thing. It does not use WireGuard as a back end piece. When talking about networking, I would also mention Teleport. Well, let's see. Teleport access plane. That's another product I did not know about. So thank you, Digit Eagle. I will take a look at this a little bit, and maybe we'll talk about this another week. Does look kind of interesting. Server access, Kubernetes access, security software done right. Well. When a company throws something like that up, it always makes you question a little bit. I've got a demo video. Works with everything you've got. All right, well, that's like the Ansible is listed on there. I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you for the tip. It's mostly whoever they pick to establish a relationship with. I have a fingerprint kit and the card that can be sent to the FBI. Awesome. Great, more content. All right, well, let's see. Maybe start by inviting PE for Doers. David, if you ever want to be on the live stream and have your mugshot on here live with me, you're always welcome. We'll have to think about that and get a topic that we want to talk about and go from there. We have collaborated before. I do want to mention that. We have collaborated before, and there are videos of us chatting on both my channel and David's channel. So, worth taking a look at that. I know it's been... Wow, that's been like almost 2 years ago, though. So, it'd be interesting maybe revisit that idea. All right. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? I guess I can. I'd be happy to be on your stream. All right. Well, I'll shoot you an email and we'll set something up, and I will make sure to send you the link to join. Excuse me again. To join on StreamYard when we go to do this. Alrighty. Well, let me bring myself stream. Let's go full. Let's remove that. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. We have been going for hour and 21 minutes. I want to say thank you to everybody and for coming out again this week. This was interesting. I didn't get quite as far on the Zabbix configuration as I had hoped, but so it's honestly my first stab at this in quite some time if I had actually done it before. I'm happy to say we are over 3,180 subscribers now. So have a mini milestone of 3,200 coming up here probably in the next week or so. Week or two, I guess, maybe. Things are looking up. I am continuing to experiment, as you can tell by the camera angle, continuing to experiment with what I'm doing with this. I'm kind of liking this. I do need to clean some stuff out behind me and maybe clean up the framing of this a little bit, but this has been fun. I think this was productive today, and so I would invite you, all of you that are watching this now or in the future, if you haven't done so, please like the video. Feel free to leave me comments. You know, this is how I make the channel better and bring you more content and address issues that you'd like to see addressed. I want to give a shout out to Willie Howe. He's been spectacular. Every time I show up in one of his live streams, he does a shout out to my channel. So thank you, Willie. And anybody watching, if you're not familiar with Willie's channel, just look up his name, Willie Howe with an E, on YouTube, and check out some of his stuff. Lots of networking, lots of telephony, focusing on green stream for telephony. There's a lot of different networking stuff, from MikroTik to Ubiquiti Unify. He's using OpenSense for some things, and he was actually just doing a video last night integrating zero tier with OpenSense. So definitely worth checking out. There are things that I've done that he hasn't. There are things that he's done that I haven't. And I can only hope that he's in some way benefiting from my channel as well, because I've certainly had the benefit of viewing a lot of his videos. So that will, I think, bring us to the end of another video. And yeah, I am in the process of getting a couple of things recorded and edited. At least one video will be coming out this week, and we will be here again next week, same time, same place, for another live stream. And who knows, there might be a surprise live stream somewhere in between. There are some projects that I may not wait for next week to do, and it may be something that's short notice, but I may be going live some night during the week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Thank you once again, and I will see all of you hopefully next week. Stay safe, everybody.